Hello, this is Sound here, and welcome back to the Soundcast, episode 20! This is a milestone for me. I think that any of these spin-off series from my main channel that isn't just Sound Out Review, they've not lasted this long. A lot of the concepts I come up with, I try them out for a bit, like, oh, hey, here's a series like The Posing Montage, or here's a series like History of Megazords. None of those went anywhere. They just kind of were a thing I came up with a concept for, but never really pursued it. And I'm glad to see the Soundcast is not only something that I've kept up for 20 episodes now, but is something that is doing decent views. In fact, lately the Soundcasts have been doing better than my reviews, which has also made me consider what to do to possibly make my reviews better. Which is why there hasn't been any reviews lately. I've been still kind of working out the kinks of what I'm going to do next, but should be exciting when it does happen. But for now, this is the big 20th episode. I'm really feeling accomplished with the fact that I've been able to put out this podcast nearly every week. I've missed a couple weeks here and there due to school and work, but I've been trying real hard to get this out every week, and here we are, episode 20. So, for something special this time, I'm going to be actually doing a movie review. In fact, not just one movie review, but two movie reviews. Because why not? Two movies recently got subbed from tokusatsu genre stuff, so let's talk about them. So yeah, it's going to be a review-focused episode. We got two movie reviews, 4 episode reviews as usual. So let's jump right in this. Let's not spend too much time. Let's start talking about Kamen Rider Heisei Generations, Dr. Pac-Man versus Ex-Aid and Ghost with Legend Riders. And first of all, I gotta say, I get it. It's a thing in Japan to have ridiculously long movie titles. This is too long. This is like bordering on the levels of O's Den-O All Rider, or Kamen Rider Cross Kamen Rider Cross Kamen Rider, O's Den-O All Riders Let's Go Kamen Rider. That was a ridiculous title. This is almost a ridiculous title. Luckily, Rider is only used twice in the title, so I'm gonna let it slide. It could have been Kamen Rider Heisei Generations, Dr. Pac-Man versus Kamen Rider Ex-Aid and Kamen Rider Ghost with Legend Kamen Riders. But Rider's only in there twice, okay? In fact, you could probably drop the Legend Riders thing. I don't think that's needed for the title. But, then again, that was the best part of this movie. So without further ado, let's begin. This whole movie, I feel like, was less about continuing Ghost's story and more was about setting up Ex-Aid plot points and then just having in fun cameos of past writers. That was really, it felt like the purpose of this. And the Dr. Pac-Man aspect of this, while it was a cool concept, is like, oh look, there's this dude with a Pac-Man head that lasted a whole 15 minutes. He popped that thing off and never put it back on. He did summon a giant Pac-Man to attack the world, which I thought was nice. What I thought was pretty interesting about this whole movie was that I never felt like this movie was necessary. It didn't really serve either show. And admittedly, I did not watch Kamen Rider Ghost. It was the first Rider series in years that I completely skipped. But even for that, I feel like it takes place after Ghost series. It talks a little bit about like Ghost just being alive again, I guess. But I just didn't feel like it was really necessary for his story. And to that same extent, it wasn't necessary for Ex-Aid's story either. It did set up the Legend Rider Gashats, which would go on to appear in the Kamen Rider Gem Special series, which is borderline not canon even. And it did actually reveal plot points that would be brought up later in the series for Kamen Rider Ex-Aid, including the Mighty Brothers Double X, Imu, having, being the patient zero of the Bugster virus. Dr. Pac-Man was one of the doctors that operated on to remove Peridot. Stuff that comes up later, and this movie is not needed for any of that. It was kind of a nice little teaser, and the way they wrote off Double X being used in this episode and never being used again was just that Imu forgot the whole situation. So he forgot everything he learned about the plot, and he forgot that he had the Double X. Which also, that may have led into Peridot and Gem creating the Double X Gashat. So, maybe it's all just a bunch of setup. And that's what I think this movie was. This movie was part crossover with 3 previous writers and The other part was just set up for Ex-Aid. It's hard. Shows like Ex-Aid and shows like Gaim are two series that their pace is so breakneck that it's hard to insert any movies in there because there's no downtime. This movie just kind of has to happen. That being said, I think that pretty much sums up my negatives on this movie. Also, I never really got why Dr. Pac-Man was so crazy, or actually, I don't get why Dr. Pac-Man was based around Pac-Man. I thought there might be some reason, like maybe, oh, Pac-Man was his childhood favorite game or something, but he was just like, I made Pac-Man. Pac-Man's a giant monster now. Okay, then. And then the whole Pac-Man thing got dropped after that, so whatever. Let's talk about what the good things are about this movie. And that is the crossover bits. Because honestly, I love Kamen Rider movies even more than their series because I feel like they can do more spectacle with the movies. We're not going to worry about the plot so much. You just do that great special effects work that Toei knows how to do. And I feel like this was a very good special effects showcase. So, fights I really liked. I really liked the fight between the giant Pac-Man along with Ghost and Ex-Aid. Part of the reasons I really liked this, even though they were fighting a giant CGI Pac-Man, eventually in a giant CGI maze, first of all, we had a Legend Rider Ghost Gashad appear out of nowhere, / it was explained and I wasn't paying attention. Not really sure, a lot kind of happened in this movie. And then we also had an Ex-Aid icon that just kind of appeared. So it's kind of cool they did the whole power swap thing that like Gaiman Drive did, and I don't remember if Drive and Ghost did that. Anyways, point is that they did the power swap, which I thought was neat. But I thought was really cool was the scene where Ghost goes to Henshin, and he doesn't have his powers because he's alive, he's not a ghost, so his Orai Damashi does not work. And he tried to use it earlier in the movie. But what I thought was cool is that he goes to do it anyways. He's going to fight anyways, and he gets the power back. And the music was intense, it was fantastic, it was epic, it was glorious. It just set this up so well, and when it happened, I got so excited. I'm like, I don't know who this guy is. I did not watch his series. I don't really care about him that much. But that was a cool scene, and I got chills. I got chills, like, watching that scene. I thought that was really fantastic, the impact of that. Followed up with Emu screaming, because there hasn't been enough of that in the existence of that character. But, you know, they fought Pac-Man, and I thought that was really cool. The other thing I thought was cool was seeing all the secondary writers and tertiary writers. We get a lot of writers these days, so I thought it was neat that Ghost's secondary writers and Ex-Aid's secondary writers got spotlight fight scenes. They got to fight in all their forms. They got to do cool stuff there. I realized that was the first time I've seen Spectre and Necrom fight in show, so that's cool. And it was just neat to see Kyria again, because I feel like Ex-Aid has been missing that element of laser. He was kind of a wild card, and it was neat to see him in this movie. Brave and Snipe were awesome as usual. Just Ex-Aid secondary writers upstage Ex-Aid all the time. But overall, I thought like the fight scenes were really good, and overall it was a very compact movie. And then it decided to be a second movie as well. I thought this was neat because instead of doing the traditional movie war style where it was like, here's the Ghost story, and here's the Ex-Aid story, and then they intersect and they fight together. Instead it was, here's one story, they're crossing over. Works fine for me. But yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say on the Ex-Aid Ghost front of this movie. The part that got me, and this may be because I just have more fond memories of older series, but they had Kamen Rider Drive, Tomare Shinosuke, no powers, as an integral plot of this film. When Toei brings in cameo actors, whether it's just a suit or whether it's the actual actor, they don't usually get to be a part of the story. They're just kind of thrown in at the last minute. Gaim was thrown in at the last minute because his actor didn't come back. Alright. Both Drive and Wizard are in this movie as integral plots of the film. Drive is working with the police department, and Ghost goes to him for help since they had a previous crossover, so all the continuity is acknowledged there. Which I thought was great. So it was really nice to see like Tomari Shinosuke be a detective and help out, and he was part of the police force, and he was helping out. We got great character moments, like him and Kiriko are having a baby, which was like, oh, that was so cool because that's like a callback to Drive. If you're watching this movie and didn't watch Drive or didn't know about Drive, it doesn't mean as much. But for the people who actually watched Drive, it was a nice callback, and it was more of a continuation of plot, I think, than Ghost even had. Um, so I thought that was great, and then seeing Haruto appear out of nowhere, and then fake work with the villains for a bit, which I thought was just fantastic. The way he tricked the villains into being their new guards, so was able to escort Ghost and Ex-Aid into the villain's base. Thought that was great. Honestly, I think he was kind of tacked into the movie, but Wizard's story was finished. There's nothing more you can add to it. I think at least his appearance here was better than in Kamen Rider Tyson, where he was fighting as Wizard in Rider form and then suddenly knocked out of it. It's like, oh, hey, Haruto, how's it going? This, you actually feel like part of the film. And then even Gaim was important to the plot because he showed up in suit only. They made it seem like he just tensioned, and he was able to give Drive Belt-san back, which I thought was great. Like, I think it was a good way to bring in the previous 3 writers, and I like this idea of just bringing in having 5 writers like that. I thought that was really good. So it was really nice. I thought it was really interesting that Gaim didn't have any new dialogue. It was all dialogue pulled from whatever recordings Sano Gaku had done as Kota Kamen Rider Gaim. Either from movies, TV shows, video games. You can probably source back all of that if you really want to. But I thought it was just kind of neat. I was like, hey, they actually had his voice as a proper voice instead of a stand-in, just by pulling from other sources. So that was really neat. But overall, the fight scenes were really cool because what surprised me was that Wizard, Drive, Gaim all got full fight scenes. They got to fight off monsters, Bat Ride War style, switching forms all over the place, got to use their final forms. Every single form they had, they pretty much used, which I thought was awesome. And the best part was that their theme songs played. Earlier in the film, we had X8's theme playing because Excite is such an addictive theme, it just appears in random moments of the show anyways. So it kind of just worked as the theme of the series for the movie. Ghost theme never appeared because, honestly, personally, I think that's not the best Kamen Rider theme. That's just my personal opinion. Let's not get into an argument about it. I just don't think it's a good Kamen Rider theme song. It's a decent song, just not a good theme song. But we had Wizard, Gaim, and Drive's theme songs. 3 of my top 10 favorite Kamen Rider themes by far. I love those 3 songs. I even own Wizards on a physical CD from Japan because I like it that much. And so it was great to hear those songs again. It's been months, years almost, I think, since I've heard any of those songs. And I just put them all back on my phone so I can listen to them again. So it's kind of a nice revisit. I think the strengths of this movie lie in the fact that it manages to do a crossover that gives new forms to writers, it brings back older writers, it shows writers working together, and it all wrapped up into a Pac-Man shaped package. Honestly, this movie doesn't really have too many flaws if you're looking at it from a Toku movie perspective. Because if I were critically looking at this movie from a filmmaking perspective of this is how films are made, I could tear this thing apart. The plot makes no sense. The characters are... but I'm not going to get into that because when it comes to tokusatsu, and when it comes to any medium, you got to worry about perspective. If you're judging Kamen Rider Heisei Generations up against The Dark Knight or Citizen Kane, it's going to look really bad in comparison. But if you're putting this up against, say, Movie War Core or Let's Go Kamen Rider, it looks a lot better. This does have a similar premise to Movie War Mega Max, which was this is my favorite Kamen Rider film of all time by far, and I think that this one tried to be similar to Mega Max in how everything weaved together. And did a very good job at it, but I still think Mega Max was a stronger film because it really felt like in the middle of this movie, another movie started. And that's not a good sign with any filmmaking. You don't want to separate your movie that much. It's kind of beginning, middle, end. 3 acts, but you don't want to just feel like another movie started up in the middle. But that's pretty much it. I would definitely recommend checking out Kamen Rider Heisei Generations. If you haven't been watching, if you haven't watched X-Aid or Ghost, but you watched Drive, Gaim, or Wizard, or all 3, definitely check it out. It's a good revisit. And if you're just wanting to watch a movie that has really good Kamen Rider action in it, this is a good one to check out. So look for your local fan sub. Currently, I think just RTA subs with help from Overtime are the only ones that have subbed. I don't think TV Nihon has their sub out yet, but they might if you're listening to this in the future. So definitely check it out. On to our next movie, Doubutsu Sentai Zyuohger versus Ninninger, Message from the Future from Super Sentai. Too many frums. I understand one of those frums is in English in the actual Japanese title, but too many frums, Toei. You could have just ended it at Doubutsu Sentai Zyuohger versus Ninninger, Message from the Future, but there's an extra from. Let's talk about this movie. I've been seeing it get a lot of hate online. And I don't think it's deserved. I honestly felt like this was a solid Sentai crossover movie. I have seen the highs and lows of Super Sentai crossovers versus movies. Personally, I think the worst Sentai versus movie was O-Ranger versus Kyuranger. I could have a whole podcast about why that movie is terrible. I don't like that movie at all. I still think the best versus movie was the Gokaiger versus Goseiger 199 Legend Heroes, because that, I think, was just like, they nailed it there. And everything else kind of falls in between. There's a lot of good ones, there's some bad ones. This is by far not even one of the bad ones. This is kind of a middle ground. This is like a mid-ground thing. And I think a lot of hate comes from this movie because people still hate on Takaharu. I get it. You guys don't like Takaharu. Don't condemn the whole movie. There's a lot of great things in here that aren't Takaharu related. So let's talk about that. First things first, there's a mini Live Man reunion in this movie, which I think is great, because we have Daisuke Shima, who was the actor that played Red Falcon in Shoujo Sentai Live Man. In this movie, he voices Red Falcon, which is wonderful. I love Live Man. It's one of my favorite Sentai of all time. To hear his voice again was just fantastic. What's also something that people may not know is that Joji Nakata, who played Great Professor Bias in Shoujo Sentai Live Man, the main villain, is the voice of Oswald from Zyuohger. So it's kind of neat. We got the voice of actor who played Bias voicing Oswald, and the original actor for Red Falcon voicing Red Falcon. Really cool stuff. I think it's great, and it's a good way to represent the 40th anniversary Sentai. And I think this also lined up with the 30th anniversary of Live Man? Maybe? I'm trying to think now. It feels like it was the 30th of Live Man. I'm trying to remember for my hardest, and that is me looking at the Ranger Wiki to figure out what year Live Man aired in. So I believe it aired in 87. Let's see. Yeah, I think it did. Did it air in 87? Why are you not telling me, Ranger Wiki? You have let me down in my most dire need of where the heck is... Okay, and they're not even listing it. Now I'm researching on the podcast. 20 episodes in and I still don't know what I'm doing. Okay, it aired in 88. Started in 1988, I guess. So anyways, Live Man is coming up on an anniversary, so I guess it kind of works out. That was a really long segment. I apologize, folks. Let's talk about this movie in proper form. This was meant to be the 40th anniversary movie, as well as being a Zyuohger Ninninger crossover. It is a Zyuohger Ninninger crossover, first and foremost. The 40th anniversary stuff kind of comes in at the end. It's not really a big deal, honestly. I like how with Zyuohger, Toei was like, all right, it's the 40th anniversary. We're going to acknowledge it. We're going to have a Gokaiger crossover. But we're not going to load up this season with a bunch of references to past Sentai. We're going to make a good show and call it a day. And Zyuohger was a very good show. So, I got to say, this is really cool. So, the thing is that this isn't a heavy crossover movie, but it's still got a huge crossover scene. And that involves all the past Super Sentai coming together. All the Reds are seen, with Red Falcon leading them. And all the past Sentai in their super mecha combinations show up to help the Zyuohgers and Ninjas defeat the villain at the end, which is important, and I thought it was really cool. Overall, this movie just kind of doesn't do anything new. It just kind of did stuff. What I thought was neat was that it did justify the verses in the title. I think sometimes the verses is just, oh, it's a crossover, but they were actually fighting each other in this movie. First of all, the Niningers got bad intel from an evil, cute monster that said that the Zyuohgers killed their family or whatever and destroyed their planet. And so the Niningers ambushed them. Instead of talking it out, they just are like, "Oh, you're evil. We're gonna kill you." And they're like, "But we're camping. Why are you interrupting our camping?" And then me and the audience just like, "Why are you interrupting the camping? They're having fun. The animal friends are having fun." But anyways, it leads to them fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting, and then only Yamato and Takaharu are not fighting. And it kind of just there's this whole plot with Takaharu, and this is the thing. I think Takaharu is just one of those characters that for some reason somebody at Toei just loves Takaharu and makes sure that he is the forefront of everything. Because I really felt like the Zyuohgers should have gotten more focus in this movie. Usually it's the returning team that doesn't get as much screen time, but in this case it was the current team, which I thought was really strange. But most of the plot followed around Takaharu's son from the future, who came and was warning them that they're going to kill each other, and that's the end of Super Sentai. So that's a scary thought. But basically, it's kind of neat because Takaharu apparently died, so he never met his son, and his son comes back and gets to meet him, and then they have a cool henshin where they put 3 Aka ninjas together with, Takaharu's father, Takaharu, and his son. So it's kind of a neat little 3-generation thing, similar to one they did in the series itself. And they just had some neat stuff. I think the kid was a good actor. He was honestly pretty good. The suit actor for the new kid Aka Ninja, he was good. I think that suit actor was probably the one for Kotaro and Kyuranger. But yeah, there's that. I think the interactions were fun. Misao and Kenji make a good team. I thought that was kind of neat. And a lot of the matchups they had were really cool. We had some really great fight scenes between the Zyuohgers and the Niningers, and then, again, them all working together to fight back against the villains, which I thought was great. The villain was decent enough to work for a crossover movie. And I think overall this is just kind of a middle-of-the-road show. Like, it's a middle-of-the-road movie. It's not horrible. It's not amazing. It's just, it's there. And that's a lot of the time what Sentai is. It's just kind of like Sentai follows its good formula, and that's what keeps it on the air so long. And I really enjoyed it. One thing I did not like was the mecha combo at the end, where they're like, "Oh, let's just slap a shuriken on Wild Tosai King." I was like, that's great, because I can't do that with the toys, because A, you didn't release that shuriken, and B, there's no way to plug a shuriken onto a Juo Cube without some special means. So would have been neat if they'd actually like worked in something like Juo King sitting inside a Lion Hao. I don't know. But I guess I kind of already did that last year. But it was just kind of the thing is that you can hate this movie for a lot of reasons. And you could spend all your time hating it. Or you could just enjoy it for what it is. And if you, for some reason, think it's the worst, if you think this is the worst Sentai Versus movie, go watch O-Ranger versus Kakuranger, then come back and tell me this is the worst, because there's just no way it is. And now we get to the second part of this review, and I really want to talk about was how this helps with Kyuranger's continuity. And friends of mine tell me I sometimes look into things a little too deep. And I come up with crazy fan theories. But hear me out on this one. As we know, in Uchu Sentai Kyuranger, they go to Earth. There's no mention of other Super Sentai yet. We're 15 episodes into Kyuranger. If there was Sentai, they would have known. Also, we don't know how far in the future Kyuranger exists. It's kind of a weird time. And it's something I don't think will get cleared up until maybe Kyuranger versus Zyuohger, which is a long time away. So we're going to run with what I got here. So let's run down the evidence we have. Kyurangers appear on Earth. In the Kyuranger series, Kyurangers go to Earth. No mention of Super Sentai. Dark Matter's already taken over the universe. Well, where are all the Sentai? There's 40 Sentai that could have fought off Dark Matter from invading Earth. That's for certain, right? They did it with the Armada in Gokaiger, which then again, they could have tried the same thing and it just didn't work. I kind of imagine this funny scene where they fire a big old energy bolt and the Dark Matter Emperor just kind of swats it back and they're like, oh crap, now we're all dead. But, that's a different story for a different day. And by no means of anything I'm saying in this segment is confirmed true by the canon of the series. At this time, with this movie plus the series we go with, this is what I got. So, basically, in the Kyuranger series, there are no past Sentai from what I can tell. There's just no reference there. So either Kyuranger takes place in Sentai's first alternate timeline, because they've kept everything in the same timeline for whatever reason, but Sentai could have an alternate timeline. This could be an alternate timeline. Or all the Sentai are so far dead, everyone forgot about them. I think that second one's highly unlikely. So, I'm going to use this movie as my catalyst to figure out Kyuranger continuity. In this movie, we do have a cameo from Uchu Sentai Kyuranger. All 9 Kyurangers are together. So, what's cool about this is all 9 Kyurangers are together on Earth, and wait a second, they're saying they made it to Earth like it's the first time they've been there. Or they've been here before. Or they're from space and they know what Earth is. Let's remember in the TV series, they are like, what's Earth? We don't know what that is. And then they got to Earth and they're like, oh, what a surprise. So it doesn't really work in continuity. And the Ranger Wiki does note this as well. So I'm not the only crazy person out there. This is definitely something that's either going to be explained with a time travel episode, kind of like what Gokaiger did, but I don't think that's going to happen again because Gokaiger's time travel episode to explain its pre-series cameo was amazing. And I don't think it's going to get repeated. But it could happen. There is no... there's another thing, is there's no Juman around on Earth in Kyuranger. So maybe Kyuranger takes place in a different continuity. Now, how does it take place in a different continuity? Sentai does not work off multiverse theory. It has things like Christmas World and Engine World and such, but it doesn't work off multiverse theory. So, in order to get this to work, this is what I think happened. So in this movie, Takaharu's kid talks about how the Super Sentai there's no more Super Sentai because the Zyuohgers and the Ninniningers killed each other in battle. Okay, so that's the end of Sentai continuity. Don't ask me what happened to their 38 after those two ended. That's the end of Sentai. Okay, and he just grew up in an era where there was no Super Sentai teams. Now, let's follow that original plot line there. No Sentai. Several years later, the kid several years later is no Sentai. Even more years later, that's when the Kyurangers could exist. It's been long enough. Sentai have been dead. There's no continuing teams year after year. Hey, guess what? Dark matter can take over now. And that's how we get to Kyuranger. So I think that the Kyuranger TV series takes place in the version of the future where Takaharu's kid came from, where there were no Super Sentai teams. And the Kyurangers that appear in the movie, which are described as, hey, they changed the future, now there's a new Sentai team, according to Bado. You got that. So I'm like, hey, that's really cool, because Uchu Sentai Kyuranger appears. Bado didn't have to use his powers, which was good, because he didn't want him dying too soon. But Kyuranger appears, and they fight off the Zyuohger's villains. But they're a little different. They're the same personalities. The graphic for Naga's power is different, probably because this is pre-series cameo. And they're on Earth, and they're like, hey, we made it to Earth, like they've been here before. So either this cameo is a weird time travel thing, because they did come flying out of the sky as meteors, kind of like Kamen and Meteor. Either it's a weird time travel thing, or the Kyuranger TV series takes place in the alternate timeline where Super Sentai no longer existed, and this Kyuranger is the version of Kyuranger in the main Sentai continuity. That's the end of my theory. Let me know if you guys think I'm right, or if I'm totally insane. Either way, let me know, because I'm kind of curious. But that's pretty much this movie. For those wondering, yes, Takaharu had a kid because he married a woman and they had a child. And if you're wondering, if Takaharu is supposed to die on a certain day, and how does the kid get born? Like, how is the kid able to be born if he's not alive after that day? Well, here's my theory. So either Takaharu was, married a girl and got her pregnant really quick, because apparently they're newlyweds and he didn't tell anybody that they got married because it's Takaharu and he doesn't think. Or he got a girl pregnant and married her quickly before anybody found out that he had a child out of wedlock. So, that's just my theory. So, moral of the story is, if you have a kid, gotta live with that kid. Raise that kid right. It's not the moral of the story at all. I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. Overall, Zyuohger vs. Ninninger, if you don't watch it, you're probably not going to miss anything. But if you do watch it, it gives you a little bit of clues, Kyuranger continuity, fun moments with the Zyuohgers and the Ninningers teaming up, and Takaharu's kid, who is the focus of this movie. They Trakina revenged this, didn't they? Anyways, that is all. TV Nihon subbed this as of right now, so definitely check it out. Props to them for getting it done first. So, that is Zyuohger versus Ninninger. Message from the future from Super Sentai. Alright, folks, welcome back to This Week in Toku, the segment of the show where I talk about this week's Toku series. Without further ado, let's just kick right into this with Uchu Sentai Kyuranger episode 15. This episode was the episode we've all been waiting for. Hammy got a focus episode that told us near to close to nothing about her character. Turns out she was shy as a little girl. Hope you like that plot. That's the end of that. Yeah, I'm not even joking. This was, I feel like, the episode that was supposed to make up for the lack of focus that Hammy has gotten this entire series. And, yeah. Not much to talk about. It was nice to get something, but at the same time, that something wasn't a whole lot. The rest of the episode involved the Kyurangers going to a beach planet. So, yay, they got off Earth. They actually left Earth. I was like, yes, you left Earth. Good job, guys. You did it. You weren't scared to leave Earth. And they went to a beach planet that has been completely polluted by dark matter. And there was a monster who was tricking the islanders to give him sacrifices and give him all their food because he was the savior protecting them from the dark matter, even though he is the dark matter. So it's that plot. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that in fiction, where the proposed savior accepts sacrifices because he's actually the villain. It's a little tired, but it's not a bad episode. It just kind of feels like the same way Zyuohger versus Ninninger is, where it doesn't do anything new. You're not going to get anything new and exciting, but it's pleasant to watch. It's not terrible. It's not great either. I thought it was a middle-of-the-ground episode. Last week's episode at least had more. It was really weird. Last week's episode had way more to do about Garu overcoming like his unlucky streak and learning his sexual identity than this episode did about Hammy learning anything. I don't think she really learned much. She related to the girl that she met in the fact that she was shy, which like Hammy was shy, and Hammy's a ninja girl that doesn't do any ninja stuff outside a suit, so there's that. I just feel like they dropped the ball with Hammy, and it's too late at this point to try to fix the character. Suddenly giving her a backstory is okay. I mean, Gokai Green didn't get his backstory till like episode 36 or whatever, but at least he had some more things going on during the series, getting over his, fear of fighting and being scared in battle and not really being sure of himself. Hammy is just, she's a competent fighter. She gets things done. She has a little bit of a backstory that she related to the little girl, which I guess helps. But she doesn't have anything to overcome. She had a brief thing to overcome where she just had to accept that Lucky was going to be, leader of the team as opposed to her, and that she gets really competitive. But other than that, like, who is Hammy? Hammy's a character the fandom came to decide how to spell the name. Two different groups spelling it two different ways. I feel like this was the time to give Hammy some really needed focus, and we got some of it, but just not enough. Honestly, this felt like an O-Ranger episode, where they tried to bring in elements that would develop the characters, but because the characters weren't developed prior, it didn't really leave an impact. And I think that this episode was going to try to make up for focusing on the other male Rangers more. I mean, this is the first time we've had two female Rangers on a 5-person team, and I just didn't feel like it accomplished anything. Stinger and Champ accomplished things because they found Scorpio, and the main Kyurangers did find another part of the Argo, but I just feel like this episode could have been a lot better, but it just didn't go through with it. And I'm not really sure why. I'm not really sure what is up with it, but it's just kind of sad that Hammy is our first regular female Green Ranger to exist in Super Sentai. And outside of being a female Green Ranger, she doesn't have too many unique qualities. It's kind of sad. I really thought they would do something. I was really looking forward to this episode because I thought that, oh great, we're going to get a Hammy-focused episode that doesn't have Lucky shoving his head into the middle of it. Like, the last time Hammy had some focus back in episode 6. But this episode just didn't seem to just commit to the idea that, there would be some kind of character development for her. And it's because there was no seeds planted for her to have a story either. She's a ninja girl. She used to be shy. Her planet got wrecked. Everybody's planet got wrecked. It's not unique to her that her planet got destroyed by dark matter. It's unique that everybody was able to hide because they were ninjas. Garu's planet got wrecked. Spada's planet got wrecked, I think. Lucky just got left behind. Raptor's a robot built from scratch. Sho Lanpo lost, his commander. Giving Hammy a tragic backstory of, all of her loved ones died and her planet's been destroyed, didn't give her anything new. It just made her more like the other Kyurangers. Doesn't really make her stand out from the crowd. Not to say there wasn't much else in this episode, but there wasn't much else in this episode. Really wasn't. I feel like I'm trying to remember what happened. But it was just typical, Savior is actually villain, people don't believe it. Naga was part of the village people for a bit because I don't know why. I don't remember when he changed into that clothing, but it's just nothing really made an impact this episode, except for the little stinger at the end with Stinger and Champ. Which just leads into the next episode anyways. It's just, I honestly gotta say, I can't say it was a bad episode, but I'm just underwhelmed. I'm kind of disappointed. I think that the strongest Sentai seasons are not the ones that have plot every single episode. The strongest Sentai episodes are the ones that take the episodes to focus on a character or two, develop their relationship, develop their character, have something they need to overcome, something they learn and experience, or have a story that comes back to haunt them. For example, Gao Ranger, you had Gao Black, who had a fear of falling, and he was jumping between rooftops. Even though he's all suited up in Ranger form, he couldn't get over that fear of not making the jump. And so Gao Blue helped him with that, and that deepened their friendship, and that eventually Gao Black was able to overcome a fear, which I think overcoming fears is one of the biggest things. But I didn't feel like Hammy had any fears to get over. So the thing is, if Hammy was shy as a girl and she got over it, it happened off screen. We didn't get to see that development. I think that it would have been interesting if some kind of element was introduced. So, say for example, I know what it would have been, a really good twist for this episode that would have made it really, really impactful. If the monster they were fighting was the same monster that wrecked Hammy's village and was responsible for destroying her planet, then she has to overcome the fear of this monster that had ruined her life as a kid. And she could have overcome it by defeating him, and that would have helped her grow as a person. But instead we didn't get any of that. I feel like as many risks as Kyuranger is taking, it's also playing it extremely safe. And I really wish it didn't. Especially right now. It's kind of a weird time. Anyways, hopefully things picked up next week with the showdown between Stinger, Champ, and Scorpio, but this week I felt kind of underwhelmed. I think for the first time since the show started. Alright, let's move over to the other show that we have for Super Sentai, Power Rangers Dino Force Brave, or as I like to call it, K-pop Dinos. Yeah, I think all of these actors are Korean pop stars. But, anyways, on the flip side of things, K-pop Dinos, Episode 6, I'm just going to keep calling it that because it's so much easier to say, it developed the storyline between Dino Red and Dino Gold being brothers, and Dino Gold not acknowledging the fact that Dino Red is his brother, and Dino Gold being stoic, and he's just like, well, I don't want to be, you're not my brother. I'm gonna I'm not gonna fight with Neo Day Boss, but if you guys hire me, I'll fight with you. And I'm just like, oh, that's kind of interesting. If the Dino Force Brave team just scrapes up enough money, they can just hire Gold, and they never have to worry about him crossing sides. But it's kind of like he's falling into that character trope of being very stoic and serious, and like I don't just join up with teams. I'm a space mercenary first kind of thing. And I thought that was pretty interesting. We also did have the introduction of Raiden Tyranno King, Brave Raiden Tyranno King. So we had a combination, and we saw all 6 Dino Force Brave Rangers working together, which I thought was great. But we did have that bit of character development, which was pretty nice for a 12-episode series that takes 3 minutes to do opening and ending. Something that was very jarring, though, was that we had Dino Gold being very stoic and very serious the entire episode, and then suddenly, at the end, he is smiling and dancing with everybody. I was like, oh, that's nice. That seems really out of character, though, but it's nice. It was kind of a strange thing, so I was like, usually they stay kind of in character during the ending dance, but for this show, they decided not to. So it's kind of interesting. But yeah, they added him there to the ending, which I thought was great. And overall, it was a good episode. There were some really cool fights in it. Dino Force Brave, at the very least, is doing a good job of having visual spectacle with its fight scenes, and not so much worried about focusing so much on plot, because I think that would drag the series down. But we are getting a lot. You are getting the basic Sentai formula in 12 minutes, including a full opening and full ending, episode preview, mecha fight, civilian fight, or civilian scenes, and ranger fight. So I think it was really good. Honestly, I feel like if I was judging Dino Force Brave harsher, I would have a lot more problems with it, and I probably would complain about more aspects of it. But I think for what it is doing a good job at being an entertaining show that's not very long, that, yes, it's made to sell toys, and it's sort of working, because I still keep thinking about the the Brave Kyoryuger set from Premium Bandai, but overall, I think that it's a neat show to watch. It's a fun additional thing to have. And I think anybody that's going into it expecting a full, well-rounded Sentai cast and expecting a deep plot and the layered characters, probably going to be underwhelmed, because you're expecting way too much out of a 12-minute series that's airing in Korea. It's Korea's first attempt at an adaptation of Sentai. Remember that Power Rangers in America's first attempt of adaptation was kind of bad, because Mighty Morphin Season 1, while a beloved classic among many, is not full of deep characters or plot. But I think Dino Force Brave, for what it is doing a good job, and I hope that it will eventually lead to Korean doing other productions, because I kind of like how their style is very similar. It follows the Sentai formula, but it is very different in what it does. Its execution is different, and I think that it's really interesting. And I like having this third Sentai show, because we got Super Sentai in Japan, we got Power Rangers in America, and Korean Power Rangers in Korea. I think it's really neat. And I kind of hope that they do either a second season of K-pop Dinos, or go and do like K-pop Spies and make a Go Buster sequel. I don't know. I kind of hope they continue with this. I hope it's successful, and I hope we get to see more, because it's just really interesting to see a different way of the same formula being done. And it feels fresh that way. So overall, K-pop Dinos episode 6 was solid. If you aren't watching this show for any reason, I'd say check it out. TV Nihon has the Korean and Japanese dubs. I personally recommend watching the Korean dub, because everything kind of matches with lips moving and such. But if you are wanting to stick to Kyoryuger terms and sounds, stick with the Japanese dub. Whichever you decide to pick. I say try both and decide which one you like better. That's it for Super Sentai this week. Let's switch over to Kamen Rider. Alright, let's talk about Kamen Rider X-Aid. This is always the most exciting show to watch that I never can retain all the information from. I've been thinking about X-Aid lately, and it's just partially because the theme song keeps being stuck in my head, as well as the Tokimeki Crisis jingle, but I feel like Kamen Rider X-Aid is one of those series that has a lot of great ideas and a lot of really good execution, and is pulling off a really fantastic writer series. But I also feel like things are moving so fast, I cannot remember everything that happened. There's a lot of stuff that has happened in this series in the 32 episodes that it's existed in. And outside of like toys, which are easy to track because the toys exist, it's hard to remember every character and plot point that I've run through this series. And I was trying to think back, and partially this is me marathoning a whole chunk of episodes at once, but I really cannot remember everything that's happened in this show. So when plot points come up out of nowhere, I forget they ever got introduced in the first place. Case in point, a character in this episode. We get a reemergence of a character for Xaid, and I completely forgot he was in the series beforehand. And I had to look it up. And that's when I realized, as good as Xaid is, and it's good, it is way too fast. Because it's hard to absorb all the information, because every episode feels like the equivalency of an older writer show. It would take like 4 or 5 episodes for Wizard to do something that Xaid does in one. Every episode kind of feels... Honestly, Xaid kind of feels like if Kyoryuger Brave was a half-hour show and they were airing 2 episodes in a half hour. Because every Xaid episode, I always feel like every one of them has like a complete story. Like it has a complete chapter of the story, and then the second half of the episode happens with another chapter. It's kind of strange, but it's really how it's going. There's some great moments here with Poppy and Nico. They're cute. I like them. They keep the show fun and energized. It's nice to see Brave and Snipe being able to use level 50 at the same time. It's great seeing Gim being able to use Dangerous Zombie with a gamer driver. And it's great seeing Lovelika being killed off because that guy was so creepy and obnoxious. I thought he was interesting when he started out, but then the character went nowhere. And he's gone now. He's gone. He's gone. Paradox and Graphite took some hits. And overall, that was all caused by Kamen Rider Kronos. Or Cronus, if you're watching certain subtitles. Or Cronus, as I'm watching it. I'm going to be going with Cronus because Cronus, there's Cronus, Cronus, Kronos. I'm going to go with Kronos because it's time, chrono. And Kamen Rider Kronos can control time. Kronos is the most broken Kamen Rider of all time. I feel like if this guy went up against Odin in Gold Drive, Kronos would win in about 10 seconds. He's that broken. And I'm almost kind of concerned that he's going to be too powerful and the show's just going to go back into the Imu's a punching bag stage that it was when Gim had just gone Dangerous Zombie. It's going to just be that again, isn't it? I also like that Kronos is actually referring to the writers by their game names because of his background. I think it's kind of neat that he's just like, he goes up to Brave and he's like, oh, Tattle Fantasy. You're strong. Oh, hey, Perfect Knockout. And it's like, that's really cool because like kind of how I refer to the forms. I know they have different names, but it's like, hey, I refer to them how Kronos does. So technically, I'm not wrong. But I think the reveal of who this character was could have been better. Because I feel like the reemergence of this particular... I'm not going to say who it is. I honestly don't even want to say who Kronos is for those people that may be listening to this before they've seen the episode. And it's probably all over Twitter by now. I just don't know why. I don't want to say who it is. Because they're a good twist. But they set it up way too early in the episode. I feel like if this character had reemerged and we just didn't see it until he showed up to become Kronos, that would have had more of an impact. I think showing him with the driver and the Chronicle Gashat, and also seeing him now reemerged, I think it would have had a bigger impact if he just showed up to the battle as Kronos, and then revealed who he was to everybody. Or like, he just showed up to the battle, then henchioned into Kronos, instead of the pre-setup. Because I think the pre-setup kind of ruined the surprise. And it ruined the impact. Because like the second... And this may be also, in watching the show and knowing of the toy line, I knew the second I saw a bugle driver's way and a chronicle gashat. I was like, oh, that's Kronos. No doubt. It's not going to be anybody else. Also, apparently Kronos is a second patient 0, which last I checked in medical stuff, patient 0 isn't a thing that you have 2 of. It's usually just 1. But yeah, so, you know. Overall, really good episode. This was an episode that started out by being like, hey, we're the finale of the season. This is the end of Xaid. And then the second half happened, and Kronos is like, just kidding, we're entering the third act here. Second act went by really quick. Way quicker than the first. Maybe this is like the 4th or 5th act at this point. I'm not really sure. But overall, Kamen Rider Kronos make a spectacular debut. But I am concerned that he's going to be too powerful for this series. And hopefully, Heisei gets a new form soon to fight this power that is here. And now it comes to the time where we get to talk about my favorite show ever, Kamen Rider Amazons. Whoa, 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 take your Amazons. Kamen Rider Amazon Season 2. Recently I was looking online. Turns out this is actually a divisive show. I really like it. I think it's fantastic and it's doing really cool things, but there's some people that don't like it. And I can understand why, but at the same time I can't. That being said, I think that disagreeing opinions is a different way of looking at different mediums, and that different people resonate with shows differently. And I think that's really interesting. So, let me just talk about my opinion. And if you don't like the show, by any means, don't think that because I say the show's great and you say the show sucks, doesn't mean we can't have a discussion about it. Talk about it in the comments. Just hit me up. Just, hey, I don't like Amazons. I don't like this, this, and this. And I'll reply with what my thoughts are, you know? Discussion. That's how it works. We don't have to yell at each other. There's no name calling. Nobody has to send death threats. Just have a nice, casual discussion. It's possible. You should try it. Alright. Kamen Rider Amazons. Season 2. Episode 7. The Third Degree. This was the best episode of Season 2. Just kidding. Not really. This wasn't the best. This was a good episode, though, because I feel like it's a good turning point in the series. Because, for many reasons, the focus of this episode was on EU. And some people may not like that. I personally think EU's story is compelling, it's tragic, it's sad, but it's also got a lot of layers to it, and it's being developed every episode, which I think is great. Poor Chihiro was getting experimented on and getting threatened by evil 4C organization, which is just, you know, that's what they do. They're an evil corporation run by evil people. But the thing is that EU actually ends up running away, inadvertently. She ends up going back to her family home, and there's this interesting scene where she runs into Hiroki, who was a classmate of EU's, and he's like, oh wow, Chihiro's right, she is dead but still alive. But EU goes back to where her family home was, the apartment building, and starts singing, and the neighbors are like, isn't that girl that died? Didn't her whole family get killed? What's going on? And Hiroki's like, hey, we need to go. What I think is interesting is that it kind of developed, like, Hiroki's trying to find his place in the show, I think. But he's kind of that character that doesn't belong to any of these factions. You know, he's not part of the old extermination team, he's not part of the new extermination team, though he tries to get part of 4C via EU. He's not part of the Amazons. He's not really on anybody's side. He's kind of this floater character, but he's a new perspective on older ideas. And the way he talked to EU was interesting, and the way they went to an amusement park where they had gone on a class field trip, and EU was seeing a place where horses used to be. And anytime that she'd find something that used to be fun in her past life, she'd start singing. Which is really sad. It's just so sad. And I feel like more of her emotions are starting to come up now with Chihiro and also with Hiroki. I think that they're both reminding her of her past and what fun was, and it might actually lead to her developing a personality again. But who's to say Evil Corporation 4C may just stop all that. There was some funny moments in this episode, particularly with the 4C extermination team having time off. They had a day off, and because EU left the complex and they had to go look for her, Kurosaki, I think is his name, the leader, and then the guy with the glasses. Kurosaki was at a dessert bar, and he was getting like dipped chocolate, and then the guy with the glasses is getting a massage done, and he calls him up. He's like, "Hey, so EU ran away. I went to go find her," and Kurosaki's like, "Really? This is my day off. Does this really happen?" And he just seems so pissed, and I thought that was so funny to see. He was just like so pissed off that he had to, and he was like, I'm gonna get this to go. What ended up leading this into is that Chihiro was being experimented on by naturally he's being experimented on by the 4C guys, the guys, and they threaten him. They say, "Hey, you and EU have to work for us, yada yada yada, we'll kill you," or something. I don't know. They're just throwing out villain threats. They're evil. I'll come back to them eventually, but I think that was probably the weakest part of the episode. Was I think Chihiro as a character maybe is not as strong without EU. I think that's really, they kind of work together as a plot line. But what's interesting is we do have Amazons that EU and Hiroki discover are attacking people, and the extermination team ends up helping them, and they actually do save somebody again. So props, you saved 2 people in the show so far. And so EU's fighting them, but she gets beat down because there's 3 of them. Chihiro comes in, but he's too weak from the experimentation. And that's when the greatest moment of Amazon Season 2 happens. The most hyped I've been, I think, of the whole season. Because in stumbles Takayama Jean. Kamen Rider Amazon Alpha returns. Now, Amazon Alpha, he's been teased for weeks of when he's coming back. And I'm like, they have been building this guy up for him to return. What is he like after 5 years? He was in such a poor state where Nanaha was basically taking care of him because his face was burned and he'd gone crazy and was trying to just kill everything. What happened to this guy? A lot of things happened. First of all, he's not scarred anymore. So that was a surprise. Second of all, he's blind. He can't see anymore. And that may have been a trade-off to getting his face fixed, but once again, we'll see. His hair's grown out. He's looking kind of shaky. Can't really see where he's going, but he can hear really well. And that's bad for those Amazons. Because when he goes to fight those Amazons, he can't see. And he is stumbling around. He is knocking them down, though. And he manages to kill 2 different Amazons without being able to see them and only working on hearing. What makes this work even better is the fact that not only do they have the actor having contacts to make his eyes look blind, they're grayed out, but the Alpha suit actually has gray eyes as well. The green eyes have gone gray because he can't see anymore. And the Amazon Rider transformations are biological, so it makes sense that he can't see anymore, and it's reflected in his Rider suit. Which is great because his Rider suit has the scars, so it's the same kind of idea, and I think that's really a neat little detail that I didn't notice at first, but I realized, hey, he's got gray eyes on his Rider suit too. But the big bombshell they dropped at the end of this episode that just made me go nuts is that Takayama Jean, Amazon Alpha, is Chihiro's father. And that is a great plot twist. And now it looks like next episode is going to be a flashback to the 5-year gap. Nanaha's in it. What happened to Nanaha? What happened to Jin's face? How is Chihiro was able to age 15 years in only 5 years? They talked about how it was strange he aged quick at the beginning of the series, but why is that? What means did it come to be him being born? Was he a science experiment? Or did Jin's Amazon cells infect Nanaha and create this kid? I don't really know. It brings up a lot of questions, and I just want the next episode to be subbed so I can see it. But as of this recording, it hasn't been aired yet, so still a little longer of a wait. Overall, this is a really solid episode. It was a good turning point in the series because I feel like the EU storyline is starting to wrap up, and the Chihiro storyline is really starting to kick into gear. And I think that it's great that we have these new characters and that they are the driving plot of the series, because I felt like Amazon Season 1 was very self-contained. I never felt like, after Season 1 was over, I was like, huh, that was really a good show. I was not like, oh my god, where's Season 2? Oh, that was an insane cliffhanger, what's going to happen? I was like, hey, that was pretty good. If they do a second season, I want to see, something new. Chihiro, EU, 4C, Team, Hiroki, all new elements. They're not repeats of characters that were in the last season. In the last season, characters are still there, taking on new roles, which I think is a great way to do a sequel, because there's many ways of doing sequels. The biggest way is to just do a direct continuation of plot. But if that plot never left off anywhere, there's nothing to continue. And overall, I gotta say that I think having new characters that are directly connected to old characters is really cool, with EU being connected to Haruka and Chihiro being connected to Jin. And I think that that is a great parallel to the fact that Amazon Omega and Amazon Alpha were like two sides of the same coin in the first season. They talked about how they're complete opposites, but they're very similar. And Chihiro and EU are opposites but similar, and they're connected to the writers of Season 1. So I think it's a great parallel there. And they haven't gone back over the same plot and redone the plot that Season 1 did. It's doing something new, doing something unique. I'm digging it. I'm digging it a whole lot. And if you aren't, I'm sorry you aren't. I can understand why some people would be upset with certain things, but, I gotta say that just because the cast is all new and there's some returning characters here and there, doesn't make it a bad show, inherently. It can be a good show that's just an indirect continuation. Kamen Rider V3 is an indirect continuation of the original Kamen Rider series, and even kills off the Ichigo and Nigo in the second episode, and then keeps the supporting cast from the original Rider series. But it's still a new show. This is a indirect continuation, a thing Japan does a whole lot. It is a very common trend. If you're looking at other series that have done it, the Mobile Suit Gundam series. Mobile Suit Gundam, its sequel, Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam, was a completely new main cast, but still had the old cast, and it still was continuing plot threads from the first series. Double Zeta, same thing, continuing plot threads, but with a different cast. Happens a lot, and it's kind of interesting to see it done to Toku, because Toku usually does, here's your one writer series, and then the next series is not even connected at all, and they might have a crossover. This is nice to see an indirect sequel and a series that's continuing beyond its original run. Anyways, that does it for this week on the Soundcast. Talked about a lot of Toku this week. I still only have been talking about Rider and Sentai. I know Amazon's and Dino Force Brave are going to be ending soon. Not soon, but they're going to be ending in about 6 or 7 weeks or so. So I'm going to be needing to fill content. So what I'm thinking of doing is actually adding a new spot of a look back at a Toku series. So the idea is that for the weeks to fill in that gap of time, because we're going to have Ninja Steel coming back soon too, but for filling this gap of time that would normally be discussed with Kyoryuger Brave and Amazon's, I want to fill it in with an older Toku series. Maybe one I've seen before, but preferably not. So what I want to do is get suggestions from you, the audience. So put in the comments below a series you would like me to review. So what I'll do is be like, for example, to review Live Man, just go like, oh, episode 1, here's what happened. Do a review week by week, and then eventually, that just kind of fills a spot. And maybe I'll do like 2 episodes a week or something like that. But give me a Toku suggestion. It can be Rider, it can be Sentai, it can be Garo, it could be Ultraman, you could throw in Tomaki Hero Rescue Force. All I ask is that there is English subtitles available for that series. Throw in a Metal Hero show if it's been subbed. I need an English sub release. And I will probably pick something that I haven't seen before, because I think it would be more interesting than just revisiting something I've already watched. So let me know in the comments below what your suggestions are. If you don't have one yet, next few weeks I'll be asking for the same thing. So that's it for the Soundcast this week. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you all have a wonderful week, wonderful day, wonderful evening, whenever you're watching this. Enjoy life. Life is fun. The world can get scary, but We always have TV, entertainment to keep our minds off of things, but also maybe think about things that happen in the world as we know it. So, till next time, this is Sanat saying goodbye.